Hello, everyone. I'm the Bodacious Cowboy with my co-host, Kristy Knichel. Are you ready for a special edition of the Storytelling Chronicles? We are. Let's go.
Look out! Pop, pop, it's showtime. Showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone tell. Oh, they don't know. Gone tell. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Inglewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues.
Hello, everyone. I am the Bodacious Cowboy. It is Monday, April Fool's Day. We got a great show. I have my co-host here, Kristy Knichel from Knichel Logistics with us. How you doing, Kristy?
Doing awesome. I love that intro. Every time you play that, I'm in the background dancing. We need to come out live with that sometime.
Yeah, it kind of sets the mood, makes everybody happy, ready to go. We have a great guest today, don't we?
Oh, yeah, we absolutely do. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Robert Bain. He's an experienced management professional with a demonstrated history of leading in the transportation, trucking, railroad industry. Strong sales professional, skilled in freight sales, transportation management, fleet management, and transportation. He's a full-time consultant at GLCS, a tech company, and he is also the founder of the Strongest Man in Logistics Enterprises. He is a host and does guest appearances on podcasts, providing insight and thought leadership across the logistics, transportation, and supply chain space. He also coaches and guides people in their logistics careers, and he works with many women in this space. So he is a very strong human, and we are super excited to have him come on.
Yes, and absolutely. And before we get started, I just want to thank our sponsors, TAFS and Freight Validate, for believing in our narrative and supporting our podcast. So let's bring in Mr. Bain, the weakest guy in logistics. Just kidding.
That's bogus, man. That's so bogus that you bring me in with that.
You're like, now I'm going to fight you.
It's April Fool's.
There we go.
So it's fine.
There you go. How are you doing today, Mr. Bain?
I'm wonderful, man. It's a good day. I'm excited because tomorrow is my anniversary. My wife and I will be married 19 years tomorrow. So
happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Congrats. You doing anything special?
Really no. This was one, I'm traveling a bunch. And then we just had our first grandchild. And so life is just insane in our house. So we're planning on a big family vacation here soon. So we're just kind of saving up miles and points and dollars. And we just say, hey, we're, 19 is cool. Next year's a big one. Next year's 20 years. And so, we'll do something big for that. But right now we're focused on trying to do a nice vacation for the kiddos and the small human.
That's awesome. And you're not spoiling your grandchild, are you?
Absolutely. Because I'll tell you what, my granddaughter's not going to date a loser. So she's going to be very, very spoiled.
I love it.
Putting it out there right now, your dusty grandkid is going to take my daughter or granddaughter to McDonald's or to Olive Garden and impress her. So not going to happen.
That's hilarious. I love it. Good stuff.
Grandpa life is fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's been fun to watch my daughter very quickly mature. I mean, she's 18, so it was interesting time to find out she's pregnant. My wife and I were young parents, but to watch her and her boyfriend kind of step up and step into this parenting role has been very pleasing. And then I get to do all the fun stuff of just be Papa and enjoy Violet a ton.
It definitely changes your life like overnight. Just
absolutely does. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a pretty emotional guy, and trust me, a lot of feels over the last couple months.
Oh yeah, I've been there as well, and probably the best thing that I ever seen in my life was my daughter being born. Nothing beats that ever.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Mr. Bain, for joining us on our episode of Empowering Women into Logistics. I've known that you've worked in the industry for a very, very long time in all aspects. And we definitely want to, find out your thoughts on empowering women in logistics and the next steps as far as what males can do to support women in the industry, not just in the logistics, but when you look at the industry as a whole, there's so many different avenues that women can get involved in. So, Kristy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I would like to start is, you do podcasts, you talk to women, you've been in the industry a long time. So, what are some things that you're hearing out there that women have challenges with working in this male dominated space? Let's just talk about some of those things and see where it goes.
You bet. I mean, I'll start out. I'm going to go in. I'm going to come in hot. Scared, weak men. That's what women have to deal with a lot, is scared, weak men. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of individuals that maybe get very nervous about seeing women in break into fields that traditionally have been male dominated. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Part of that is we like things to be stasis, right? That's a wiring for us as humans. And so a lot of times people who have said, okay, well, I have this career path I may have drawn out. Well, now I have a new variable and I have to deal with that. So it's not a personal thing against women per se, but it's a variable that people have to deal with. But then also it absolutely is a very personal thing where there are certain individuals who have some, I would say, archaic views on the power that women have as leaders, as individuals, and the ability to create culture. I think that's something that has been lost for a long time in the corporate world. Is when you look at the family unit, and for so long people thought, oh, women ran the home and families were a certain type of way, and that was great, awesome. Part of that was because there was a great culture that was developed in how children reacted to parents, and how women and they led with love, and they led with a way that was a lot more empathetic versus very, I call it old school, authoritarian, nearly dictatorship styles. Again, we're moving away from this, but there is a way to still create incredible value across your business, but not do it in a way that grinds people down and wears them out. I think women have helped to increase that culture. I think that's awesome. But I do know there's people that kind of fight that because they don't want to be that, because they have, again, this mindset and this plan in their head of how to navigate the office. And now it's a new variable.
Right.
What kind of values are you talking about that could, help women, evolve in the industry? You talked about that just a little bit.
So from a values perspective, this sounds corny and it sounds very cliche, but having a voice, having a place that their story is heard, and then it's actually listened to. It's one thing to tell the story and to check the box. Look at us, DEI, we're awesome, hooray. It's one other thing over here to ensure that not only is the voice heard, but then action happens, whatever that action may be. Sometimes the action is simply, we acknowledge it, awesome. And also like being able to have that tough conversation with somebody that we're not going to move forward with X, and here's why. Y-W-Y-E, not just the letter Y. And I think it's important that people have that, because a lot of folks are also scared to have tough conversations.
Yeah.
And because again, you hear some horror stories on, oh, I tried to talk with someone and then everything went sideways. Well, let's maybe think about how you talk to people. Crazy idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big challenge because, again, like in my business, we're 70%, our staff is 70% women. So I would say it's easier, but then it's also, you have the men, right, that have a lot of women around them, and men and women are so different. One of the things I do talk about is we've never had that culture of like the water cooler talk or the fraternity type floor. We are more intermodal based than we are truck brokerage side, but even though we're trying to build that out. So we didn't have that environment ever within my company, but I know a lot of companies are out there still struggling with the fact that that's who they are, how they're set up. They want to bring in more women. People reach out to me and talk about, how do I get more women into my company? And I tell them all the time, you can't just hire one or two. Like, you have to have several so that they feel a sense of comfort in that type of environment that's out there. So it's definitely been interesting. I like to speak about it a lot and give my perspective, but also the fact that the men or the minority in my company, we had a woman leadership coach the past year and a half, maybe 2 years, but a male runs my company. He's the CEO. He's worked for me for 17 years. And he actually asked to work with her because he wanted to better learn how to work with women. How do I deal with this? We have some women in the company that their emotions are worn on their sleeves, and sometimes they tend to cry. And for a male, I think it's very hard for them to, what do I do? What do I say when something like that happens? So getting the coaching, I think, and talking about how you do that, I think is a really good step in those situations. So, you know, and I don't know like where you've worked at or whatnot, if it's ever been the case where you have more women in the company, like where you're at GLCS, like how is that within the company? Is there a balance between women and men, and what are, you know, what do you see there?
Sure. I've worked in most places have still been male dominated. When I was at Uber Freight, you know, there was a very, very good mix. I would say it was still probably 70-30 male to female. When I was at CRST, they had the highest population of female drivers, but again, it's still going to be male dominated. GLCS, you know, currently we've got a very solid female group. However, it is still the majority male. Again, part of that is it is industry, right? That is absolutely something that to find the right people, to find the right talent. To your point, you're not just going to hire one or two women. You're not just going to hire them to check a box either. You want to make sure that it's a good fit culturally. I like what you said when you mentioned, you know, having a coach to, because you're right. How Jeff and I would deal with something between the two of us is probably going to be different than how I handle things, you know, obviously between my wife and I, but between a female coworker and myself. And so one, recognizing that, and also recognizing both reactions to things aren't bad. We tend to villainize the differences we all have, right? And demonize them. And so we want to make sure that understanding that like my reaction to things where it may be very matter of fact isn't bad. It's just my reaction to things. And so I also make sure that I take the time to tell people, like, I may be very blunt with my feedback or with my response. It's never, unless I say specifically, like, this is going to come at you, because I will do that.
Right.
But it's more like, hey, I'm going to be very direct. And then I want them to also respond authentically. Jeff, you and I have talked about this, you know, ad nauseum, but being authentic is the most important thing to being able to work with any person, but especially people that have differences. As you said, Kristy, men and women are different. We're wired differently. We approach things differently, and that's good. We want that. If everyone's the same, there's no need for everybody else.
Right. That's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've discussed, you know, when you go in there, it's not just about listening and trying to figure out what's said, but listening with intent, trying to understand. And there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that do not have that, what's that called? EQ, you know, that
emotional intelligence,
the emotional, intelligence that listen, understand body language, you know, listen to what's being said. You know, there's a great book out there by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Successful People. And one of the segments is seek to understand and then to be understood. What Rob's saying. It's so important that you, like I said, you're listening, you're understanding, and then you're responding with the right response, you know, taking the emotional side out of it and just being real, that whether it's a male or female, you're talking to them directly, like you said, Rob. It's so important. You know, one of the things I brought up on another show, and I wanted to get your feedback on that, you know, there's a safe room for women in a lot of corporations when they feel unease, they want to get something off their chest, they need to speak to somebody, they can go and do that and know that there's not going to be any repercussions whatsoever. What are your thoughts about companies having a safe room for males? How important do you think that would be? And what do you think the impact would be if such a thing existed?
I think there's a lot of executives who are going to start wetting their pants when they hear that. Because the reason why I believe there's a need for safe spaces, and I'm the first one to joke about feelings and safe spaces. Like, listen, it's your fault for having feelings when you get upset. Like, you know, I'm the first one to have that fun. But when you really break it down and you look at, you know, how people react to things, like what you said, Jeff, about, you know, removing emotions, I'll remove emotions from responses, but I also understand that people still have them. Like that's reality, right? I get emotional about stuff. I told you guys earlier, you know, how somebody came at one of my friends and my teammates here at GLCS watched me lose my mind. And because that's how I react to stuff like that. Those types of safe spaces where there are and there's truly no repercussions. Because let's be real, there's a lot of companies say, oh, it's open door and it's, there's no retaliation. Wrong. Bull. Absolutely, there's retaliation. Absolutely, you hear about it because the first thing an executive says when they hear something like that, that feedback of, I don't feel comfortable, I feel uneasy in the culture, I don't like this, is who said that. It's not, oh my gosh, what do we do? It's who said that.
That's wrong.
Yeah,
Because they're immediately trying to qualify it of, oh, well, that's just Jeff, man. Like he shaved and he feels weird now. So like that's just Jeff. And
I do.
no, you're right. It's almost like people can't have these feelings or emotions or they're wrong because they feel this way. And I think the other point to bring up is that some women or even a male, for example, are going to feel differently about situations. I might come and talk to you about something that I feel I'm totally comfortable talking to you about. So then maybe you feel talking to Susie over here is going to be okay with what we just talked about, and she's not. And now she thinks that you're saying something inappropriate. And I think that's the challenge too for men. Like, how do you know what's right to say even in front of a woman without offending them? Because you just don't know, because people do have different ways they take things in.
Yeah, there's different environments too. And let me use this as an example. Listen, there are women truck drivers out there that have, a truck driver's mouth, and they talk the way that we do and vice versa. And there's no bickering, there's nothing. It's understood and nobody feels offended or anything like that. However, now you get into a corporate situation and you're at the water fountain and you went out with the date last night, you went to a bar, and then you start talking about things that you really shouldn't talk. And there's women passing you and stuff like that. Listen, I did that. I say it all the time on every single podcast because it's so important. I did that in my youth when I first started out because I didn't know any better. And then as you grew, you started learning things, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what you can do, should or should not do, and I think that's the biggest difference here.
I always think about it, or I do my best to think about it, of if I overheard someone speaking about my daughter that way, how would I react?
Correct.
Or if I ever heard an adult speaking to, well, not one of my daughters is an adult, but my 14-year-old daughter who's a minor, if I overheard an adult speaking to her that way, how would I react? If I'm going to react in a negative way, I probably ought not say it. Now, I'll also sometimes qualify things like, hey, Kristy, can I be inappropriate for a second? And if I get permission, I've at least warned her, like, I'm going to tell you something weird.
Yeah.
And more often than not, I'm going to share a meme and we have a good chuckle and we move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say more times than not, I'm usually the person that's guilty of saying something that everyone's like, you just said that? I'm like, yeah, that's who I am, but like, we don't think about that. And I'm going to say, I don't think about that when I'm saying that in front of other people, whether it is a male or a female, because I figure like, this is who I am. But then it's like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best thing to say in front of these people.
And I've had to watch that this is who I am. I got called out on that once, and the response I got was when I said, "Oh, hey, this is who I am. That's kind of how I respond to things." And the response was, "Well, you're an a-hole. That's what you are." I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay. I appreciate the very candid feedback. Gonna teach how I address that." But what was great is with that, because that person inadvertently knew how to aggressively respond to me, which I take very well. And again, this was not intentional on their part. They just wanted to try to put me in my place. So we were able to have a conversation, things move forward. But as we talk about these safe spaces, kind of, put a bow on it, the ability to give candid feedback in an environment, especially as a woman, because again, if I'm all hot and bothered because my friend, got talked bad about, people say, oh man, he's passionate or he's very protective of his friends. But let's be real, Kristy, if you do the same thing, wow, she's emotional, she's out of control. Is she fit to lead? It's the exact same reaction you and I have.
Right.
But it's how people perceive that, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think what people say it is being criticized. It's so critical depending on who your audience is. And sometimes too, I know like how some words can come out of my mouth, and sometimes it takes a while for me to get to know someone before I'm like, oh, like now I can open up and truly be who I am, because that's just the way it is, because I don't want to offend anyone. But like you said too, like we are built a certain way, and I'm not, in my opinion, like I'm not trying to offend anyone. I swear a lot. There's just certain things I do that some people don't like. I was born with a trucker mouth. My dad used to tell me all the time, stop saying the F word. And I'm like, Dad, it gives me like stress relief when I say that word.
And I would be like, man, F all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, look, let's face it here. Who in logistics doesn't curse? Come on. I mean, it's all over the place.
He's not wrong, kids. He's not wrong.
Yeah. It's definitely different. Again, like when you're in a group setting with people and stuff, again, like I just hired a sales rep back it was last year at some point. It was a girl I mentored for years, went from one company to another. Now she works for me. And she knows me in that light, right? And we went on a business trip. It's Abby. You actually interviewed her, Jeff.
Yeah.
But then she got to see a little bit other side of me on this business trip. And I was kind of like, is this okay? Like, is she going to be okay? But at the end of the day, it worked out fine. But again, you just being careful because some people, they're not okay with that.
Right, true.
But anywho, on to, let's see, another subject here. Jeff, do you have your question you wanted to ask?
Yeah. So Rob, as someone deeply involved in training and workforce development, what strategies do you believe are essential for encouraging more women to pursue careers in logistics, especially in roles traditionally dominated by men?
So every single role outside of HR, got it. Let's call it what it is, right? HR and finance have typically been the areas where a lot of women were placed, and until it got to the leadership part, and then it was typically, a guy, right? And I saw plenty of that in my career where you've got, the director of or the director of finance, and his name's Charlie, and there's Charlie's Angels all over in his area. For me, when I speak to women about their careers, one, I ask like, what is it you want? Like when you talk about what you want, there's a certain financial place you want to be at. But also I would like to believe in a lot of, especially in this age, in this connected information age that we have, and hate to say it, the social media age, what type of influence do you want to have? Do you want to be a Shelley Simpson? Do you maybe do you want to be a Cassandra Gaines, where you've got, an awesome product, and then you've also got this amazing personality and thought leadership? Do you want to be a Charlie Safro, who's a little more strategic? Like, what's the type of person that you want to be? Or do you want to be more in the background? Do you like, I don't want the public stuff, but I want to build a career.
Right.
So I start there because I like to work backwards from the end goal, right? Typically there's a financial component with that, but I always do tell people, male or female, when you do great work, the financials will come. But also be very, very clear, they do not take care of themselves. I cannot be more emphatic about this, in that the only person who will ever advocate for your salary if you're an employee is you. Your boss isn't going to, their boss isn't going to, the CEO definitely isn't going to, because the more they pay you, the more that adds to the bottom, takes away from the bottom line, which ultimately impacts their bonus. That's not bad. That's just math. Right. So I make sure people understand that. So a lot of the strategies that I like to bring forth is get way past the how do you book a load, how do you sell to a customer, like what does supply chain mean? Like how do you work in supply chain? What do these different facets have? A 3PL warehouse, the hybrid models of brokerage and carry. Help them understand these different things. So one, there's way more value than the freight bro potentially who's just slanging freight in his basement. But also then it starts to open up the world. Like, I also understand that people are amazing. There are way smarter people out there that I work with and that I help coach. Like, listen, I'm gonna give you the foundation. You think about what else it is that you want to do. And so I make sure that they know the different areas and where they play. Because then when they start talking about the supply chain, they do one of two things when they speak to an executive. A good executive, a good hiring manager goes, this person is awesome. I can train them. There's value there. They're going to do way more than just sling freight. I like it. Or, as mentioned earlier, they're going to scare somebody like, oh my gosh, this person's going to take my job. And they're going to make up a BS reason why they can't hire them. Right. Either way, my people win.
No, I like that. And I'll tell you what, I was always a strong believer in always hire people that are smarter than you.
Absolutely.
Because they make you who you are as a leader. and it's also the stimulus that surrounds you. If you want to learn, you want to grow, you want to fail, you want to rise, hang out with people that will help you do that, that won't suppress your efforts in getting you to that next level. But I firmly believe that sometimes you have to cleanse the people that surround you. So in order to open up other further doors for you for advancement, that's definitely true. And the training you mentioned is so critical, where a lot of leaders, it's unfortunate, but it's true out there, keep a lot of things to themselves, and they don't know how to delegate positions, especially to women as well. And I know when I've hired a ton of women that I wish I had more and more and more of them, because they were smarter than guys. I'm not afraid to say it. And they're more organized and they get a lot of work done. And I brought them into the inner circles. I don't see that. I haven't seen that a long time. Maybe it's because I haven't been in the corporate world for the last 7 years, but it seemed like there were more males in the conference room than females. And I think they should bring in a lot more females in there if they haven't been doing that. So
and I agree. And one thing that I'll hit on there is actually a couple of things. You hit on the head is, you have better, smarter, stronger people around you than you are. Case in point, Jeff, you've heard me talk about this. Wolfpack Barbell Club. It's a private invite only gym up in Racine, Wisconsin. It's my gym, my team. And there's two training groups, or pods, whatever you want to call them. There's the early and the late pod. Early folks start at 8 a.m., late pod, bars loaded at 9:15. And early folks, I don't care what you're doing that day. If it's max effort work, if it's reps, doesn't matter. You're done at 9:10 because we got to either switch bars out or we got to make sure we start loading. But they're also the feeder system for the late group. The late group, they're the stars of the show. The late group, it's 7 people. Every single person in that group squats over 1,000 pounds and benches over 600. And the only one that doesn't is because she's female. And Crystal squatted almost 9 during her career.
Wow.
And so this is a group. It's a group of killers, right? And at any given time, if we decide to go into we'll call it a squat suit measuring contest, there's 1,100 pounds in the bar. And it ranges in backgrounds from, you've got the VP of sales for one of the largest SAP integrators or implementers in the US, to a guard at the Kenosha prison, and everything in between. And this group raises the bar, no pun intended, for everyone around them. And because of that, we all walk in the room, we walk into any meet, and we know we're the baddest ones in the room. Flip that to the professional side. When you surround yourself with much, much smarter people, you look smarter, one. You have to be humble, because again, they're smarter than you are. And 2, you can develop people a lot faster, higher level skill set than you do. And I think we're going to go to commercial here in a second, but I want to make sure I hit on something that inspired me when it came to that has helped lead to Strongest Man in Logistics Enterprises and what I do there, and also at GLCS when I work with people, visiting the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. But I think you guys want to go to commercial first.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about that, because I do want to get into that and really talk about what you're doing over there and how that's making an impact.
Yep.
Because I'm really interested to hear about that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about our sponsors, which TAFS is your trusted partner in transportation for factoring solutions. TAFS specializes in purchasing accounts receivables from small and medium-sized transportation companies, helping them boost profits and increase cash flow. So with a focus on exceptional client service, TAFS has risen to become a leader in the transportation factoring industry. So if you want to elevate your company's financial success, contact them today at 913-393-6100 to learn more about how they can support your business.
Trucking excellence meets unparalleled service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like our fantastic tire discounts. Need cash fast? Try our 1-hour advances. Plus, we're here for you 365 days a year. Need loads? We have a pro dispatch service. This is why TAFS was recognized as the top factoring company in 2023. You'll benefit from strategic partnerships for enhanced operations. Access business loans and manage your finances easily with our client portal, F2 Fuel Card, and mobile app. At Taft's Factoring, we're more than just a factoring company. We're your partner in success. Contact us today to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
I don't know what happened.
We lost Jeff.
It looks like we did. So I'm going to talk about this. So today's episode of Empowering Women into Logistics podcast is brought to you by Freight Validate, the ultimate identity and compliance verification system for the logistics industry. Freight Validate empowers shippers, brokers, carriers, and more to ensure compliance with regulations and mitigate fraud risks. With Freight Validate, you can easily verify entities' compliance status and identify potential threats within minutes. Don't risk your business with unverified carriers or brokers. Choose Freight Validate for peace of mind and learn more at freightvalidate.com and start your verification process today.
And motor carriers depend on Freight Validate to stop fraud, but they can't do it alone.
Shippers must verify every carrier that comes in to pick up a load.
Hey Siri, check Freight Validate.
Sure, what's the MC number?
123127.
The company you can rent ME LLC is a carrier and cannot be completely validated at freightvalidate.com. The platform is not able to verify information obtained in federal, state, or public sources in regard to identity, risk assessment, or compliance history with 100% certainty. Please follow company protocols for additional safety and compliance vetting. For more information, please go to freightvalidate.com.
Fly-by-night freight brokers, how can I help you?
Mr. Broker, why did you send me this carrier? They are not validated on Freight Validate. Please do not send me any carrier that is not validated on Freight Validate. If you are not using Freight Validate, I suggest you start. I'm sorry, we cannot load you. Your company does not meet our compliance standards. Please call your dispatcher for more information.
Fraud starts with fraud. It ends with Freight Validate.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. I hit a wire and all of a sudden my camera went off and I was like, oh, thank you, Kristy.
I figured the bridge maybe was making its way. All the debris was making its way to New Jersey now.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, we certainly appreciate the sponsors and hope that you'll check them out. And let's get back to your story, Mr. Bain.
Yeah. So, I've always been excited about the industry and about leadership. And, ultimately what I wanted to have, I've seen people that have, created great legacies in the industry. I think about the folks at Coyote and the kind of alumni group that they have. Same thing at Command or at Uber Freight. And so I thought about, how could I possibly do something like that? And I got inspired going to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. It was probably 2018 or so. And if you've never been, I recommend any viewer or listener go check this out. There's this an installation in the back that is what they call the coaching trees. And Bear Bryant's one of the bigger ones, but it basically walks through the staff that worked for him, the staff that works for them. And it basically traces from Bear Bryant to the Nick Sabans to the Hayden Fries, these great coaches all across college football, and this incredible lineage that impacted not just the sport, but I also think about all the young men that impacted and how that changed their lives. Many of them went on to the NFL, got college educations, went in the professional world. And these men, while yes, they were winning football games, like they were changing lives is what they were doing. And that's one of the reasons why they were great coaches, because then that reputation continued to push out and young men wanted to flock to them to go and be a part of that movement. And that was why I started Strongest Man Logistics Enterprises. Was I want to be able to put leaders across the industry that do the right things because it's the right thing to do. Certainly there is a level of excellence when it comes to execution. Excuse me. But they impact and they change lives because that's what this industry did for me. I mean, When I moved to Chicago, I did not have a job. I'd worked at CRST. I decided just to get up and leave Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I mean, there was a time when my wife and I lived in our van with 2 kids. And yeah, I mean, I was homeless. And this industry has given my family everything. And so if I can impart that on others, and I can, whether male or female, but especially young women who see the opportunity because they see that. And again, they look at, oh, yep, that's another white dude just doing his thing. Look at all that privilege. But no, it's not. Like there is the ability to step in. And as this industry evolves, we need different thought process, different leadership. And I said, if I can somehow impact individuals to have that same experience, maybe not get down as low as I did, but to raise the level of their life, like I want to do that. However I can help that. And so that's why I started Strongest Man in Logistics Enterprises, was to give people, and I charge very minimally for that, if anything. A lot of these people are my friends, so a lot of it is just ad hoc. But really is about making sure that there's connections made and that people are able to further their careers. And I've gotten to watch a lot of really cool people do awesome things over the last 3 or 4 years with that, and it's been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I come from a background where like I went to college and I quit, and I always felt like, especially for my dad, like, because he's always like, hire people with degrees and this and that. And I felt like I was a person that might not get this opportunity anywhere. So we try to give opportunities to people that are in a place that maybe would not get that opportunity, because I have found the people that are at, I don't want to say at the bottom, but like you're homeless, right? Or like in situations where you're not fortunate, you kind of rise to the occasion because you have to, and you got that opportunity. And I love that. So, I mean, talking about that a little bit more. So how do you envision that platform, helping, I guess, the industry out there and supporting women in careers? Like, do you get women that reach out to you and you talk with, or is that something you need to continue to grow and put out there?
I do have some that reach out. I absolutely need to continue to grow it. And so that's something that I will probably continue to do even well past traditional retirement. Because also I understand that as a male-dominated industry, and the higher you go in leadership in larger organizations, you almost need that sponsor, so to speak, that person who's going to speak on your behalf, because many people are afraid to take the leap, right? And they don't want to make a mistake. The last thing you want to do is hire the wrong person and get told, yep, you screwed up there. And that's the career suicide type stuff, right? So if I can be that person again, I joked about it with a friend of mine, like, I'll be a queen maker. That's fine. Like, I would love to see that, because ultimately what I look at is, my oldest daughter is 18. My youngest daughter is 14. My kids have grown up watching logistics through me, and they're fascinated by the industry. They know that it takes dad all over the place, that I've got cool friends everywhere. I go to cool places. As I like to say, my life is dope, but I do dope stuff. And they want the same thing. And I've explained to them that this is an industry that, with very minimal official education, you can go as far as you want. And it is very much a hustler's industry. And they like that. But also I understand that there are going to be limitations initially, because people look at them and say, well, you're not a dude, so therefore we don't know if we can trust that you can do the job.
Right. Yeah. And I think it also comes with, depending on where you're interviewing. We talked about this on another show where there's a young woman that works for me that just graduated from RMU, and she went and interviewed at another logistics company, which I'm not going to name, here in Pittsburgh. But as soon as she walked in, the first question she got was, why do males succeed in sales better than women? Meanwhile, like, she's a young woman. She's kind of like, how do you even answer that question? And she was completely turned off. And I think the other side of this I'm going to is then that makes her think, like, are there companies out there that are different? Are they all like this? That is definitely a more male-dominated company.
Yep.
They do business. But yeah, I was just kind of taken back, and that put a really bad taste in her mouth. And she's like, well, I met Kristy, I'm going to go interview with her company, and for us.
I mean, I've got an answer for that question.
Yeah.
So if anybody from that organization ever watches this, because you give the guys the resources, you want these women to fail because you're scared.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good response.
No, I love that because it's almost like they're afraid they don't want you coming on and doing better than someone else that they have a
Yep.
good organization or themselves. So,
So nice coward executive officer.
right.
Doctor.
Right. Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that, like, I don't know if we can ever completely change some of these people. I'm hoping, like, the next generation's coming up, at least, that it's going to be a little bit different. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But again, like, there's a lot of talk on LinkedIn too about bad brokers. And I kind of align it with that. Like, you have the companies out there that are doing and saying bad things, but there's a lot of us out there that are doing the right thing. And it makes us all look bad when they act.
The problem is that the ones doing the right things don't get enough press.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's be real. Is it really a story, Kristy, if you are paying your carriers on time, you're accepting your load tenders, you're updating your customers, and you don't have a lot of customer churn? That's not a story.
Right.
It's not. But if you've got somebody who's laundering money or who is not paying carriers for 180 days, putting them out of business, somehow raising capital because they have some grand idea that they put into a video that they told is an actual AI platform, that's a story when it all comes crashing down.
Right.
And you know what's also really interesting about all that? Who typically runs those organizations?
Men.
Oh, what? What?
Typically men. And that's the thing. So, I mean, just to bring this into perspective. So when I got the 51% from my father, like, I've been in the industry 26 years, and obviously this was a process. I think it was 2012 when I got the ownership there. But my dad would always tell me, like, don't become a man hater. And I said, I'm not a man hater. I said, it's just about having that voice, because honestly, I had the same issue with my dad. Like, he put me in a position of authority, but yet I still didn't have authority. I still had to figure out ways to get things done around him through other men within the company. And as crazy as that sounds, that's just how it works. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
I think you can appreciate this, Kristy. And Jeff, I'm sure you can too. I love men. Men are awesome.
Yeah.
Men are dope. Males suck.
Yeah.
Males are garbage.
Yeah. When you're not a true man.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? I mean, you talk about being a male hater. I don't know if you remember or even seen The Little Rascals. And there was the
E-Man Woman Haters Club.
That's it. I mean, you see, I mean, it's all relatable, but you know where it really starts? It starts with the HRBP. If you're big enough to have one in-house that sets the policy. That's the problem. The policy isn't set. And that's why these stupid ass questions are asked of candidates, especially women. But it can be prevented. It actually can. But it's taking that step to create a policy, to create the right culture that's diverse, that will have a nice mix where everybody will get along. So it doesn't matter a man or a woman that walks through that door, they know the culture that they're walking into. And that's what needs to be corrected across all boards. I don't care what kind of industry is out there, but you got to get this male ego out of there. Seriously.
Yeah, and I agree, because I talked about this recently too, where I had a situation when I was younger in the industry come up with, like, harassment of men in the industry. And then this happened a couple months ago, where this hasn't happened in years, but a couple months ago happened to me again. And I'm just like, I can't believe this is still happening. And my first instinct is, I'm worried about all the women coming into the industry young, thinking like, do they think they have to deal with this? Do they think that it's okay? Do they have to engage in behavior because this male is, portraying it as if it should be okay? And I can tell you in this instance, my cousin who owns a trucking company in New Jersey was standing next to me, and another guy, Stephen Moore from Clarendon Capital, and they were both like, "You want me to handle this?" I'm like, "No, I got this." Like, but I couldn't believe it was like happening again. Like, it was, I don't know, it just blows my mind that people haven't grown up, ones that have been in the industry, and think that it's okay. And again, it really concerns me for these companies. Because again, this is a company too that, like, when they've had some women work for them, they have them reach out to me to talk to me. And they're probably like, I wish I would have come work for you instead of where I'm at.
Yeah, let me interject one thing too, that we're leaving a certain piece out. The staffing companies out there, if they're doing their job by due diligence when they're going out to these companies and finding out about cultures and policies, that they can relay that message to their candidates, whether female or male, what to expect when they walk through that door. That would help out greatly, so that neither would have that, that feeling, what am I walking into?
Right.
What kind of questions, stupid ass questions, are they going to ask me when I walk through, like what you said earlier, Kristy? I mean, it is preventable if the proper steps are taken ahead of time. And it takes a little bit of work to make sure that happens. It's not easy. It's not easy. Yep, because it's been going on too long. That's the problem.
Well, there's a level of entitlement. I think that you mentioned that, Kristy, is there is this version of male entitlement that says, well, because I did a thing, or because I have, something printed on my business card, therefore I get to say and do certain things. And you don't. I always take things back to like simple stuff, right? I always tell my daughters, I don't care if someone is male, female, black, white, purple, yellow. I don't care. I care that you are happy, you are treated well, and that you're safe. Those three things happen. Whatever relationships you have are great.
Right.
Yep.
When you look at your culture, same thing. Male, female, both, neither, black, white, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Do you own your role? Do you create good customer experience? So that's whatever customer it is, whether that is internal, external, shippers, carriers, drivers, whomever. And do you make sure that the company gets paid, or you get paid? If you're an independent contractor.
Yeah.
Those three simple things. You do all that, you're good in I can train, I can coach everything else.
Yep.
Right.
But if you can't get past the, hey, I got purple hair today, we got a problem, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, well, let's go into this briefly. Like, how do you feel the role of mentorship? Sorry, that was my computer. How do you feel the role of mentorship and supporting women's career growth? Like, have you had mentors in your life, which it seems like you have, and
Yep.
obviously you are already working with women and men within the industry, but how important is that? Because I'm huge on that. So I want to hear your perspective.
I keep a circle of probably, and it depends on what area of my life it is. But if I looked at across the entire board, it's about 15 to 20 people that I consider mentors. Majority are men. And I say that specifically, they're men. I could look at like my dad. I could look at, my first soccer coach, a teacher I had in elementary school. Pat and I still talk to this day. I can look at, somebody I talk about a ton as I talk about my journey in transportation. Chris Klotzbach, he was at C.H. Robinson. He was at Uber Freight. He's at Penske Logistics right now. Glotz has poured into me on the professional side more than almost anybody. I've had women too. I've had Kate Kaufman, who I believe is now at Michelin, but she was at Uber Freight as well. She was at Amazon. Kate spent a lot of time with me and mentoring and giving me perspective on different things. She's an incredible leader as well. I needed those things. I mean, I went to school for psych and elementary ed, and realistically, I went to college to go play soccer, party, and find somebody to marry. So, like, I wasn't planning on logistics.
None of us were.
And voila.
Yeah, and I played soccer and I did party, and there were plenty of auditions, and then me and my wife got pregnant. Here we are. But I needed those people to not only mentor me on the business, but also like how to be the leader that I needed to be, not always that I wanted to be. And I think that's a big difference you got to look at is, some people come in and think I'm gonna be this authoritarian leader, which you can on some level. But part of that, like saying, hey, like we're just gonna go today. You need to build the trust in people to say, okay, like Kristy, we trust you, we trust your instinct. We're running, and we're gonna run till you say stop. If you just come in and just try to be a bull in a china shop, it's not gonna work well. It's not good.
Right.
And so I've had incredible, mentors and around the industry, and I'm forever thankful for them because they didn't need to. And that's what I look at whenever I talk to people is, if they want to pay me, cool. I'm still kind of working on the financial model of Strongest Band Logistics Enterprises. Plus, it was just cool because the acronym is SMILE, and I love that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but really, there is incredible talent in young people today that needs coaching. And to be fair, a lot of the coaching I got, growing up playing sports, it's not available to everybody. I mean, I look at now, if you were going to play the same high level, travel soccer I did, from 8 to 18, basically, you're looking at $30,000 to $40,000 a year just to play. That's some people's income. You're not going to kick that to your kid. You
Right.
don't play a sport. And I'm lucky I got to go to college. Most don't.
Right.
And so that's something that I look at. If I can provide some of that and give that perspective, I want to do that. I want to also teach people that some of these paradigms that are out there are bogus. This whole, you have to be in an organization for 10 years before you even matter. That no, man, if they're not doing it for you in a year and sometimes in a month, you need to be able to make that call.
Yep.
I've got a girl that I've worked with for a few years. She and I are friends through powerlifting, and she's had to make some tough calls on organizations that she was sold a bad bill of goods. And, she basically comes into the organization and she gets told, you're here to save us. She's like, that's not what I was hired to do. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so she had to make a change. Like, well, what's they going to look at on my resume? I'm like, well, right now,
Right.
it might look a little negative, but 20 years from now, when you're telling your story and, there's some young girl in the back who's stuck in a crap role, she needs to hear that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I'm stopping you right there too, because some of the women I mentor, some of them have literally said, if they didn't have me pushing them, cheerleading, they would have never had the confidence to move to the next role.
Yep.
And that is just so inspiring because I didn't have many mentors growing up in the industry. It came very late in my career. And now I'm all about reaching out to other CEOs, men and women, even just asking questions as simple as how do I deal with a sales situation? How do you guys call your sales? Whatever the conversation is, everyone has a different perspective on it. And I think that's extremely important for everyone to reach out and get that, the stuff that you need to help yourself, even when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And you're going to have people that believe in you because they see the things in you that you don't see.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I want to be very, very clear on this. I had this conversation with my powerlifting coach last week. If someone's pushing you and it's uncomfortable and you don't like it, it seems like they're being mean because they know there's more inside you.
Absolutely.
I cannot emphasize that enough. And he is one who is like that. And he's told me, he's like, dude, we'll be friends when you retire. He's like, right now we're putting up numbers.
Right.
And that's our relationship. But that's important to think about too when you look back at a career. You need somebody who's going to push you. You want them to be nice and everything, but again, I more want somebody who's going to pull the best out of me because we get to celebrate around the world doing cool stuff if we do it the right way.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm thankful for all the mentors that I had that believed in me and believed that. And the way that I work is that I believe you have to get into the trenches and work hard, to learn as much as you possibly can. All my bosses, my mentors, coaches, disciplinarians, and Kristy and I have talked about that as well, is that they led me to the water, but refused to show me how to drink it. They believed in you. And when you have that type of mentor, it's worth its weight in platinum, not gold, but in platinum. And you learn so much more. And that's why I always preach to everybody that if you are uncomfortable, it's the best position to be in. You just don't realize it right now, but later on in your career, you're going to look back and say, that was the right thing for me to do and for my coach and mentor to push me in that direction. I couldn't.
Two pains in life. It's all two pains in life: pain of growth or pain of regret. One's temporary, one's permanent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. With that being said, what is something you wish you would have known earlier in your career where you're at today?
That I matter.
That you matter. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. I would say a lot of people probably would say that.
Yeah, I was made to feel very much like I was just a cog in the wheel or in the machine,
Hmm.
and that I look back on that now, and certainly there's merit to being a part of that. Like you need to be a part of a team. You need to contribute. Like that is very important. Uh, but if you're going to do something different with your life and with your career, you need to understand that you have your own voice. You have value, and your value is way past the ones and zeros you're clicking into a computer every day.
Right.
And so I wish I had known that earlier and had found that value and really embraced it, because that's what's led to the last 5-6 years of my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel the same way because I felt like even though I worked with my dad and had, the opportunity, I also felt like I had to push myself. It was almost like the fact that he didn't, in a sense, believe in me, pushed me so hard, made me work harder just to prove that I could do the job. So I say that fueled me, but it was such a weird situation that I was in, to be quite honest.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
Well, I want to end with a question, unless Jeff has another one.
no, go ahead, Kristy.
But what advice can you give women that are in logistics or want to be in logistics to help them understand how important it is that we need more women in logistics? And for the men, like after that, what's your message to men out there to help women?
Yeah.
On the ladies' side, start talking. Let your voice be heard. If you want to get in the space, get in. Find a way. And look around the space, because again, you somebody may see this a few years from now. Look around the space and see who the talking heads are. See who you relate to. Reach out to people. No one's that important. Like a lot of them will connect with you. Start to build a network of people that are like-minded and that you can relate to, and that you can start to understand more things about the industry. This is the smallest big industry out there. Everyone knows each other, but there's so much stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
And so I highly recommend, like, if you're not in, get in. If you are in, start talking. Get out there on the social medias. Get out there if you can do different appearance, like do that stuff. Let your voice be heard. If you're a guy, one, don't be scared. Work with the ladies, help them understand, what we're doing. As it's going to feel like you're mansplaining sometimes, and there's, it sucks, but also like give these women the education, because they're going to push you. If you truly want to be better, let them push you. And last thing for the guys, be a safe space for them. Don't be a freaking weirdo.
I like that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming to
be a fun weirdo, but don't be a weirdo.
That's even better.
Be a fun weirdo.
Maybe I'm the fun weirdo when I was talking about my stuff back earlier on.
I'm weird as I'll get it. I'm fun, but don't be a weirdo.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're coming to the end of the show. Hey, Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
It was a great conversation. I want to thank our sponsors, Tafts and Freight Validate, for making this podcast possible. We're live every single Monday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Storytelling Chronicles, empowering women into logistics. Until next time, the Bodacious Cowboy is out. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rob.